Next question is from Mark on Instagram. Hi, I have a question. I hope you don't mind answering. I don't. I took a beer to the bright tank, carbed it at 17 psi up to 12 psi. So 12 psi in the tank. So he was applying 17 pounds of pressure through the carb stone, and it got him to 12 psi in the tank. I kegged it and it tastes flat. Is there any fix to that? We're going to discuss this through in a couple of different ways. One of the variables that was not mentioned was the temperature of the beer in the bright tank. Now, through further questions, the temperature of his beer in the bright tank was perfectly acceptable, but is one of the things you have to consider. He was at 34 degrees, and you'll have no problem carbonating your beer at 34 degrees. However, if he moved that beer in there at 45 degrees and was trying to carbonate it, it's not gonna work for you, boys and girls. That gas is not going to want to go into solution at higher temperatures. Pardon me. That CO2 gas is not going to want to go into solution as readily at higher temperatures. It wants to go in at cold temperatures. It's going to be easier to carbonate a beverage at 33 degrees than it will be at 45 degrees. Okay. So that is one issue. That was the first little thing that popped up in my head when I asked that question, but temperature was not an issue. The next thing that brought up in my mind was there's kind of this little implication of wetting pressure in there, WHETTING pressure, which is basically just the volume of pressure that needs to be applied to your carbonation stone in order for you to start passing gas through it. I'm saying passing gas, and you're going to have to deal with it because you're an adult. Don't giggle because I said pass gas. But a lot of times the wetting pressure of stones like this may be around 5 psi. So if you want to get a beer up to 12 psi in the tank, you would have to set it X pounds higher. I would trial and error that out. I'm going through that right now. I have a new set of carbonation stones in the brewery that we are feeling out and figuring out how we need to operate, kind of exactly what the wetting pressure is. Functionally in the tank, there's ways you can test it and whatever, but we're kind of just, functionally, tracking what we're doing in the tank because I can't replicate the exact situation of the tank in any other way. And so you're looking at that pressure going through there, the wetting pressure that we just talked about. And then we'll kind of go big picture. If you have gotten a beer into a keg and it's too low, and it's too low carb, you have a couple of options, and they're not all perfect and they're not all exact. But I made a living at a place. I was paid to work at a place where I would fill a half barrel up to like 14 and a half gallons. And then I would apply like 40 pounds of 40 psi of gas head pressure onto that keg as it was cold, and then lower it to 20 the next day, and then lower it down to whatever. That's not the exact recipe that I used. But if you have head pressure in that keg, you can hit it with more static gas and just do like a head pressure carb and bring that up. I had a relatively flat barrel-aged beer that has been sitting in a keg for quite some time. I put that into the cooler. I know I had headspace in it, so I just put 12 psi on that thing because I wanted to enter that in an upcoming competition. So I did that for 2 weeks. It was in the cooler for 2 weeks on 12 psi. That's one way you can do it. You can speed that up by doing higher pressures. You won't want to blow that gas down on that keg before you try hooking it up to your draft system. Otherwise, it's really going to be shooting out of there. A lot of your keg couplers that you're going to see on your draft system are going to have a small ring on the side that you can pull. So what you could do is you could put your coupler on, engage it, and cut the gas to it so there's not gas feeding in, and then pull that little pressure relief, and it'll actually degas the keg, and then turn your gas back on, and it'll bring the keg back up to 12 psi or whatever you're serving at. try to serve it from there. Just draft line tips. There's that, and then there's also shaking. I've shaken a keg or two. I think it's non-ideal, but again, you do need head space in that keg in order to push that, in order to help facilitate forcing that gas into solution. But you can shake it. Way back in the day, me and Bill Gurge used to call that thing doing the Sean T's, boy. If you don't know who Sean T is, Google him. But he does the insanity workout videos. And so whenever we used to shake kegs of root beer that we were making in house. So we would get it cold and then put it on heavy pressure and then shake it. We would take turns doing sets of 100. So you just shake it. And then they were known as Sean T's. And if you ever got tired while you were trying to shake that keg, sometimes just screaming out the name Sean T would bring you some more power. So just some helpful hints for the brew house. Those are some ways that you can address that issue of a lower carbed beer in the keg. And Mark, I appreciate your question, brother. Thank you. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you feel as if you got any value out of the video, please like and subscribe. There are also other videos that you can watch. They're gonna maybe be over here or over here. Appreciate you watching.